I know the title, A Battle for the Soul, seems a little overdramatic. Hi, my name's Dan, and doesn't it always feel like the world is both beginning wonderfully anew and also tragically ending in our heads all of the time? Stuck in this never-ending cycle of hopes and dreams, successes and failures, moments of pure psychedelic bliss and connectiveness with the universe around us, along with an overpowering sense of existential dread that underlies every single moment that we spend strapped to this floating space rock that our species seems to be doing its very best to try and destroy. I've been struggling with this balance of varying degrees of interaction with both the world around me as it seems to be according to others and the world that I create in my own head. Thank God that I'm able to talk about these things with incredibly understanding and compassionate people that are around me. Otherwise, I would have thought I was going insane ever since puberty came a knocking all those years ago. Turns out pretty much every single human being on this planet is going through the exact same struggle to varying degrees of awareness, to the point that this struggle can be summed up as the hit Ryan Reynolds and Jake Gyllenhaal blockbuster that you definitely remember existed. Alas, yet another person in their 20s stating the obvious and thinking it's profound. But all egoic neuroticisms aside, I feel like this modern clusterfuck of an existence has a lot to teach us through our interactions with it. In particular with our decisions concerning how best to spend our short time here. With the overbearing presence of social media and advertising stroke marketing and the pressures that it puts on all of us to live and think a certain way, especially the younger generation. It can be quite hard to find any objective sense of purpose and a course of action to achieve that purpose in a way that benefits your well-being without causing any harm to either yourself or others, whether it's intentional or oftentimes not. For the sake of making the title of this video make any sense whatsoever, I've decided to group together various philosophies and practical examples and applications of those philosophies into two blanket terms that we can use to best describe the struggle between the two, which to me at least seems to be the struggle that is, constant in almost every single moment of our lives, pulling us in one way or the other. And those two terms are ambition versus contentment. So what do I mean by these two terms? Let's take ambition as the path through life that finds meaning in gaining things, especially materialistic things like money or status. You level up in this version of reality via external gratification, and therefore you end up separating others into a them category and yourself into a me. Without that distinction, there's nothing to gain and nobody to compare yourself to as a point of reference for the quality of your own life. So why bother living if not for your own self-interest? The more that you're able to focus on just, me, and you're able to think of others as beneath you and therefore your life more meaningful and better by comparison, the more gratification you're going to find via ambitious pursuits and states of consciousness that reinforce these ideals and morality. Again, I'm purely using this as a blanket term for the purpose of this video. I don't need the dictionary police, coming out here in the woods and tracking me down and lining a sniper scope on my ass. Contentment, on the other hand, is the polar opposite to all of this. The path through life that finds meaning in the present moment without concern for how you think things should be as opposed to just how they are. The focus is on internal work on the self, looking inward for the answers to the big questions that life presents us with, rather than answering them with the next big purchase or, the next promotion at work that we're so convinced we need in order to finally be happy. Rather than aiming to get somewhere else that will bring you happiness, you realize you're already there. Spiritual practices like meditation that help you find yourself beyond the thinking mind and ego are commonplace on this path, as well as learning to see others as extensions of yourself rather than, as separate entities. Both are major components of what makes up contentment in this specific framework that I'm using for this. You get it at this point, Jesus Christ. There's no them and a separate me. There's simply us. This framework reinforces a sense of moral duty to others and yourself in everyday life, and allows you to see the laws of karma playing out in the universe in the most peculiar of ways. It becomes a joy to simply be existing in whatever space you're lucky enough to be existing in, finding meaning in forging true connections with others and treating them with the love and respect that you would only want for yourself, because we're all just one in the same. As my science teacher used to say when we'd help him throw away all of the used test tubes after we'd done some kind of, experiment or something, let's deal with some samples. As you could probably tell from the differences and my level of enthusiasm when describing these two different terms, much like a parent who shouldn't have a favourite, I do. We'll get into my own thoughts and feelings on the matter and how all of this plays into my own life a little bit later, because right now I really want to talk about, right now what I want to do is delve deeper into these two terms by discussing real-world examples of the polarity between the two among different people whose lives represent these two concepts in the extremes on either end of the spectrum. For ambition, the mind, of course, immediately jumps to big billionaire entrepreneurs like Jeff Bezos or perfectly normal man Elon Musk. People with seemingly endless amounts of wealth that they claim they have earned through their own hard work, and it's all of the things they've done to get it. It's the things that they've done themselves that have allowed them to go from the base of the mountain where we all supposedly start from to climb right to the top and be now looking down at everyone else still trying to climb it. They often talk about the extreme sacrifices that are needed in order to be as successful as they are, and they argued that most of these sacrifices are things that most normal people wouldn't make, otherwise they would be winning just as much as they are. They believe the strength of their character to be the key difference within them that separates them from everybody else around them, and it's the reason they're not as successful. That there's something special about them that makes them better than most people, which of course only gets fed by the money and power that comes along with their achievements. The monetary and social benefits of their lives get endlessly discussed and shoved in your face online and on the news, just everywhere. And it's something, to be envied by every demographic financially and socially below them. To be envied by every demographic financially and socially below them, which in turn makes those benefits that much more enticing from their point of view as a way to keep stoking the fires of the ambitious, egoic fulfillment furnace that has become their very reason for being. Yes, these people are successful from an ambitious point of view, and they're able to flaunt around amounts of money that us lowlies could only ever dream of making in our entire lives, like it's spare change found in your pocket. But how many of these people would you say are happy, or are viewed as someone that's doing exclusively good things for the world? How many of these people don't have entire families that they've abandoned and people that they've crushed to stay at the top? The amount of lives that they ruin in the shadows just to get another moment in the spotlight. I think no matter your preconceived notions concerning any of the things that we've been discussing so far in this video, you would have to be incredibly ignorant to ignore the constant unveilings of just awful controversy after controversy, which is associated with nearly almost every highest member of our society, who have, by our own standards that we've set as a culture, achieved all of the things that we ourselves should want to achieve. And yet, by doing so, there's a highly likely chance that not only are we not going to be happy or fulfilled once we've got all of the money and stature that we think we need, but also underneath it all, we're probably going to turn out to be a degenerate. Now, I understand that I'm using quite extreme examples here, and a lot of this doesn't apply to the struggling minimum wage worker that, has all of the financial and social issues, currently going on in everyday life, who of course could benefit from thinking a little bit more ambitiously to make their life less of a constant struggle. However, it's important to understand that whilst ambition to raise one's place in the world, whether it's financially or stature-wise, isn't inherently a bad thing, and as I say, it's downright needed to survive in certain circumstances, it is crucial to understand that existing in this frame of mind, even if it's for a seemingly singular and temporary purpose, unconsciously you're telling yourself that the current moment where you are, and even who you are, is not good enough. And the only way to make it better is to achieve something externally outside of your direct control that will bring that happiness that you so seek. And that can be dangerous, especially over longer periods of time, as the moment misfortune comes your way, you are now seeing yourself as less than you should be, and therefore depression and self-hatred, they're allowed to fester in your being. If you look at the mental health crisis that we're seeing nowadays, is it really that far-fetched to say that this way of thinking and living, which has basically become the commonplace philosophy that we've adopted here in the Western world, is it really that far-fetched to say that thinking this way and living this way isn't a direct causality of that crisis? Are most people better off thinking constantly of ambition and how much more they need to achieve externally in every single moment, and thinking they need all of this to justify their own existence? I don't think so. Right. Are you ready to get a little bit kooky? I want to talk about examples of people who live on the complete opposing side of the spectrum, the contentment folk. The two key figures that come to my mind when discussing people like this is Ram Dass and his guru Neem Karoli Baba. I mean, the two are practically extensions of one another, which is kind of the point. If you're unfamiliar with these two, Neem Karoli Baba, or Maharaji as his followers referred to him, was a man living in India who Ram Dass met when he visited India in the 70s, who embodied all of the different principles that we've discussed around contentment in every single fibre of his being. Ram Dass, prior to meeting him, was actually called Dr. Richard Alpert, and he was a person that was fully consumed by the Western ambitious way of living. He was a Harvard professor, he had multiple published books, he even had his own plane, he had just about everything that you could possibly want to externally gratify yourself and tell yourself that you've made it, and yet he was utterly depressed. When he met Maharaji, it is said that he looked upon him with such joy and such compassion, this is Maharaji looking at Ram Dass, I should say, that it literally brought Ram Dass to tears. And he was looking at him like this for no other reason than him just being who he was. All of the good, all the bad, just all of it. It was pure love the way he looked at him. Here's this chubby little Indian fella that's just, sitting on the floor underneath a blanket with near to nothing to his name, and yet the differences in their happiness in the current moment, just where they were, couldn't have been further apart. Richard was given the new name Ram Dass by Maharaji, and he was forever transformed into an entirely new person. If you're curious about any of this stuff, I highly recommend checking out perhaps Ram Dass's most famous book that's often referred to as the hippie Bible, Be Here Now. And the title is actually a direct teaching from Maharaji that basically sums up all of the countless and some would say wasted words that I've used to describe contentment in the most succinct and just beautiful way. Ram Dass would spend the rest of his life in service to others, spreading Maharaji's teachings all over the Western world. He would give lectures on meditation, mindfulness, spiritualism, loving everybody, learning to see the universe as pure perfection unfolding around and within you, and just countless hours of just incredible stuff like this that it's changed people's lives. It certainly changed mine. He would work with dying people and help them, come to terms with the reality of the situation they were facing, whilst also maintaining this, appreciation for the beauty around them, even as things were coming to an end. All of these truly incredible things, and yet many people will never know that Ram Dass ever existed. I mean, certainly less so than people who know about Elon Musk, but isn't that the true beauty, really, of living from a place of contentment? As Ram Dass and Maharaji themselves taught when they were referring to the Bhagavad Gita, and yes, I have a quote, "Those who have realized the self are always satisfied. Having found the source of joy and fulfillment, they no longer seek happiness from the external world. They have nothing to gain or lose by any action. Neither people nor things can affect their security. What's most important to take away from these wonderful examples of living with a devotion to contentment, as it can manifest in any of us in our own lives, no matter who we are or what we're currently doing, is that nothing external to yourself that is outside of your direct control should ever be allowed to determine your happiness or your reason for being. You truly have the power to determine these things for yourself in every waking moment through your own cultivation of a deeper awareness within yourself. If you instead allow your happiness and gratification to be dependent on things that are outside of your control and can only find purpose in life through things going exactly as you plan them to in your idealized version of reality, then every time something doesn't go your way, or doesn't go exactly as you planned for it, down to the most granular of details, which is going to happen in every single moment down to the most granular of details, then on some level in every single moment you are utterly crushed. And this creates either an anger towards the world for not bending to your will, or a depression perpetuated by the thought that the world has let you down, and therefore you spend your entire life feeling like you're the victim of some cruel fate outside of your control and is therefore fundamentally unfair to you. Now look, I'm not saying that based on these very limited examples and my clear biases when presenting them that wanting anything is bad and sitting on the floor with nothing to your name is great. It's not that simple. Obviously, neither of these examples I've just spent way too much time discussing ever only existed dedicated fully to one side of the spectrum without ever dabbling in the other. I mean, Ram Dass has an entire foundation built around him in his name that, it has a shop and you can donate to it. And the shop has like trivial things like t-shirts and tote bags in it. And, let's look at someone like Bill Gates, who arguably is another major figurehead for the ambitious way of living. You think about the countless lives he's changed and the millions upon millions of, dollars for him that he's given away to charity, and the lives he's changed directly through his status and wealth. I mean, even super villain Lex Luthor looking ass Jeff Bezos has major funds set to, combat some of the world's most major issues like climate change and homelessness. But I mean, I guess for him, he also has, a bunch of leaked sects that came out where he kept referring to a woman as his alive girl, so maybe don't think about him, actually. And hey, while we're plugging stuff, I mean, I guess, I found all of this out through Savannah Brown's most recent poetry anthology, which actually has a poem that only uses words that were found in those leaked sects to, say something. I can't remember, it's been a while since I read it. Read the book, it's great if you like poetry. Even if you don't, read it. What I'm trying to say is that we as human beings, we all exist in a constant flux along the entire spectrum. What I'm trying to say is that we as human beings all exist in a constant flux along the entire spectrum of human potentiality, or to put it in layman's terms, the spectrum of good and evil. As an angry blonde person once said, each of us is capable of depravity, just as much as each of us is capable of divinity. It's all about how we choose to live our own lives and what voice inside of ourselves are we going to listen to and cultivate over time that guides the way. As I said at the start of the video, I myself have been struggling with this constant pull from both sides throughout my entire life. And, it seems to be even more of a struggle nowadays, now that I'm an adult and, I can't hide behind anyone or anything for my own actions and choices. I've got a very addictive personality, which, is great when I'm addicted to things that are good for me, like if I'm really addicted to working out or, meditation, any kind of spiritual practice, reading, or, simply just being of service to people. But I mean, it can be equally as destructive when I'm addicted to things that are awful for me, like, needing approval from others, or drugs, alcohol, social media, or just, even causing harm or hurt to others or myself, whether it's intentional or not. I've witnessed in my own short life so far just how bad things can get when, you're focused on the wrong things. When your brain convinces you so badly that you need more money, more power, more eyes on you, more people thinking about you, or more people thinking the right things about you. The endless streams of self-delusion that can stir up seemingly out of nowhere when, you don't allow yourself a moment's rest from the thinking mind that's been tainted by thinking that we have to play by the rules set out by this ambitious mindset. And not only that we have to play this game, but also that we have to be doing everything we can in every moment to be winning. It's exhausting. My early 20s can basically be summed up as Sisyphus pushing that boulder up the hill, only for it to, constantly keep rolling back down, and he has to do it all over again. Except, instead of pushing a boulder, I just had to stop watching YouTube shorts and listening to the Joe Rogan podcast. It's been an extremely turbulent journey to get to where I am now, which I feel like is finally a place where, even if I am still pushing that boulder, whatever struggle it may represent at any given time, knowing full well that even if I am able to make it to the top, that more than likely it's just going to roll right back down, I'm going to have to do it all over again, I'm no longer fearful of the fall. The joy and happiness of my life I now know is not in reaching the top and having that boulder stay firmly atop with me, therefore bringing an end to all of life's struggles so that I can sit there high above the rest, watching the skies until the sun sets. The joy is simply found in the act of pushing the boulder itself, without any expectations of reaching anywhere but where you already are. Struggling however you may struggle, overcoming it and, reaching the top and glimpsing the beauty that's there, or being overcome by it and falling right back down to the bottom. You are simply taking part in a dance with the universe and existence itself. And whilst you can and should express yourself with whatever movements you may choose, you have no control over what song is currently playing or what song is coming next. Are you going to spend your entire life getting angry at every single song that comes on? Or even worse, are you going to be so caught up on just how annoyed you were at a song that played countless songs ago to the point that you didn't even know what song is playing now? Or will you simply be thankful for the sheer fact that you were even invited to the dance in the first place? Spending every moment during every song, no matter the song, dancing your absolute heart out while you still are able to do so. Thank you so much for spending your time with me. It's a precious thing. It is not lost on me. I truly cannot express how thankful I am that I even get to make cool little video projects like this in my spare time. It's really a blessing. I just want to say thanks to Joe, you know who you are, thank you for the chairs. You made it so I didn't have to get a muddy bum, which is great. I love not having a muddy bum. I also want to say thank you to my amazing girlfriend Mia, who's behind the camera, who has, helped me in countless ways, not even just to make this video, but just life in general. So yeah, you're the best. And before we go, I just want to make sure you know that no matter where you currently fall on that space between ambition and contentment, no matter how good of a person you think you are or how good of a person you actually are, I just want you to know that not the person that you think you are, but the person that you really are underneath all of that, that's aside from the thinking mind, the real soul at the essence of your being. That is a perfect thing, and there is nothing that can change that. And in a simple and really cliche way, but some people need to hear this, I know I've needed to hear this on multiple times, you're enough, and I wish you the best. Thank you so much for watching. I know it's weird that this is here on the Mr. Reference channel, if anybody's watching this from, from a place of having seen my other stuff, because it's very different. But I was going to put it on like a new channel, but I thought, turns out people consist of multitudes, so I thought I would rather just have everything just in one place, and, I'm just going to keep making whatever I want to make, and you can get attached to whatever you want to get attached to, or not. You can hate all of it. That's perfectly fine as well. Yeah, again, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Bye. you know,